You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, Moveville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle. Hey guys, Jim Chester here. As you can see, I got Palmer Rugby on the t-shirt today, and I got Dr. Barry Roberts. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He has Palmer Rugby on his first rugby shirt there too. And he's coming in from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm in Grand Junction, which is the Grand Valley of Colorado, which is on the western slope, which I like to say no one lives. There are 60,000 people here, but nobody is fired up about chiropractic as I am. Maybe there's some chiropractors that could touch me, but I don't think so. Dr. Barry, you are an old boy now, right?
Yes. I've definitely reached old boy stage. I'm getting ready to turn 67.
So what you can see over that shoulder there is the old boy logo. So I picked the appropriate logo for you today.
Yes, you did. But hopefully I don't look like that when you take an X-ray of me.
No, I'm sure you've been in the profession. What'd you say now? 37 years?
37 years now. Yes.
That's
yes.
Yeah. You're in going on the 4-decade club.
Yep. I'm proud of it.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about some of the memories you have playing at Palmer and how you got into Palmer College.
Well, I guess we should start with how I got into Palmer College.
Sure.
I had graduated undergraduate school from State University of New York College of Brockport in '73, and then spent 3 years and I came out here to Tulsa to visit my aunt and uncle for 2 weeks. Ended up spending 3 years here. Then decided to go off to law school, and I was planning on going to the University of Rochester Law School in Rochester, New York, and my parents were up in Hanover, Illinois. My dad was worked for the Department of Defense, and so we moved around all my life, all over the world. And I stopped off there to see my parents, and while I was there, I thought, I've got a friend of mine from Tulsa that is going to Palmer College, somewhere down in Davenport, Iowa, wherever that is. And my dad said, well, it's about 2 hours over on the Illinois side, down in Iowa. So anyway, I called up Howard, and he invited me down for the weekend. And this was on a Thursday. I got there, and lo and behold, I got strep throat. Well, I used to get strep throat every year about that time of year. And anyway, we went to see a friend of his. I believe his name was Scott Bullard. And Howard Booz, my friend, who's a chiropractor here in Tulsa also, said, we're going over to Scott's, I need to talk to him. And so we get over to his apartment, and I'm feeling miserable with the strep throat. And knock came on the door, and it was a Dr. Desmond Pym from London, England. And he was there, and he had gone to school with Scott and Howard's dad. Both, went to school with their dads and wanted to stop by and say hello. Well, while he's there, Howard said, my friend here, Barry's got strep throat. Can you check him? And Scott had a portable table there in his apartment, and I laid down, and I knew nothing about chiropractic. I mean, absolutely nothing. And he adjusted my atlas, and I thought, well, like everybody else, he broke my neck, And of course, now we know that's just gas and fluids escaping from the joint space. But anyhow, uh, the next morning I woke up at Howard's place and stuck my tongue out, looked at the back of my throat. All the white pockets were gone, and I felt great. And make a long story short, I've never had strep throat since. So that day, we went to the school, and Howard took me into central nervous system class. He wasn't even in that class yet. He was a freshman, and back then they didn't teach that until later on. But anyway, we sat through the central nervous system class. I walked out of there and I looked at him and I said, "Better you than me, pal. You know, I'm going to law school." And so then he took me to another class, and this class was in the old West Hall auditorium, and it was Dr. Virgil Strang, who later became president of the college, of course. And at that time, he was the head of the anatomy department. And he would bring in case files from his own practice. So we're sitting there, and Howard's intently listening to this stuff. I'm just, trying to take some of it and not knowing anything about chiropractic. Anyway, he brings out this one file, and he said, "This is an interesting case. This was a young girl that wanted to be a ballerina. She was born with a congenital dislocated hip." And I looked at Howard and I said, "You mean chiropractors can help people with congenital dislocated hips?" He goes, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Because my younger sister, Deanna, was born with a congenital dislocated hip, and I remember her being in a cast from just below her sternum all the way down to her ankles with a bar in between her legs, and that's how they corrected it back then surgically. And it was horrible. And because we were on a military base in Germany, and the military hospital was like 5 hours away. Here's my little sister, like 3 years old at the time, and all alone, and on the Alps somewhere in Germany, and so anyway, I just thought it was horrible. So anyway, he looked at me and he goes, "Yeah, chiropractors can help people with congenital dislocated hips." And then Dr. Strang pulled out another file, and he said, "Oh, and by the way, that girl ended up getting a job with the New York City Ballet." But anyway, he brought out another file, and he said, "This is an interesting case. This is what I found on exam and x-ray, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "This patient had grand mal seizures, epilepsy." And I looked at Howard and I said, "Howard, you mean chiropractors can help people with epilepsy?" And he goes, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "Because that same sister of mine developed epilepsy later on." And so I walked out of there, and Howard said, "Stand right here at the top of the stairs in West Hall." And I remember the sun coming through that big window there. And he said, "I'll be right back. I missed a class yesterday. I got to go get some notes from this guy." I remember watching him walk down the hall, and then I turned back towards that light, and this voice said, "This is what I want you to do." And I said, "No, I'm going to law school." And the voice said, "This is what I want you to do." And I said, "I just sat through that brain class. There's no way in the world I'll be able to get through this place." "You'll do fine. I'll help you. This is what I want you to do." And then, boom, there's Howard standing next to me. I'm shocked. I thought he just walked away, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." So we walked down the stairs, and he goes, "Let's go to lunch." And at that time, the old cafeteria was down in the basement of the administration building. And so we got to the door, and he said, "Well, come on down this way. We'll go get some lunch." I said, "Which way is the admissions office?" He goes, "Well, you walk up these stairs over here all the way up on the top floor, and it's the last door on the left." "Why?" I said, "You go get in line. I'll be there in a minute." So I walked up there, walked in. They were getting ready to go to lunch, I guess. And I said, "Hi, I'm Barry Roberts. I want to become a chiropractor." And they said, well, is it something? I said, no, God told me to do it. And that's how I became a chiropractor.
That is pretty awesome. And I'm almost speechless. And anybody out there that's watching this knows I'm rarely speechless. I didn't know that was your story. I knew you said you were going to tell a story about how you became a chiropractor during this interview, which I think is astounding to hear the process of how you did that. So you just kind of showed up to the Fountainhead, and next thing you know, divine intervention hits, and you're going to admissions to sign your name to become a chiropractor.
It was, just like chiropractic, it was just that simple. Just that simple. And within a couple of days, I had a job working out at the mall at William Mosenfelder and Son, selling suits, and I had an apartment, and had started Scott Community College. Even though I had my bachelor's degree, I had to pick up some science credits before I could start Palmer. So, a lot of us had to do that. But that's what happened. So then, when I got into school, I think it was the first day, I was sitting in a classroom, and the professor said, "Is there a Dr. Barry Roberts here?" They started calling us doctor right off the bat. I said, "Yeah." And I thought, "Oh my God, I'm just in the first day of school, and I'm already in trouble." So anyway, I go out the hallway, and here's the coach and captain of the rugby team, and they said, "You Barry Roberts?" "Yeah." "You played rugby at State University of New York?" I said, "Yes." They said, "Well, we want you to go for a run with us tonight." And I said, "Well, I'm here to study chiropractic, not play rugby." "Oh, come on, just go out for a run with us." So I was hooked. So, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I can remember, you talk about fond memories. I remember the day of orientation for Palmer, freshman, our class. I sat in the back row of this big auditorium, and seated next to me was Michael Holliday. Next to him was Davey Dyson, who became our hooker. There was Sammy Pinkerton, Barracuda, sitting there. All these guys, talk about divine intervention. To have all these guys there at the same time, Duncan Hales, Gary Wiederman, on and on and on and on and on. And no, Bobby Randino wasn't there yet, by the way. He wasn't there. But
I was just about to ask you.
Shortly after that, he started school there, but he wasn't there that day. But and it's just amazing how all of that came together, and ended up winning a couple national championships and a lot of tournaments and a lot of games, and had a great time, and we're all great friends to this day.
So you didn't mention anything about Freddie Schofield.
Oh, Freddie came like, what was it, a year or so after that.
Okay.
So he wasn't there yet.
Okay.
This is pre-Freddie. This is when Duncan was, and Duncan was just a freshman right along with us, but he was taking over as coach. But and then Freddie came, and then all hell broke loose. So. But no, they were both great guys, both of them.
So I'm going to do a soft close for anybody out there watching, talking about the April 13th and 14th event, the symposium back in the Fountainhead in Davenport, Iowa. There's going to be dynamic speakers giving CE hours, which we'll talk a little bit more as this interview goes on. And we'll talk a little bit more about the 2 rugby games that are going to be played that weekend, and some of the festivities that happen at the banquet, along with some of the leadership that's in place right now. And I know that you wanted to touch a little bit on another topic of the distinction that you learned early on between the DC and the MD. I know that was something you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I remember when I was still going to Scott Community College, I went over to Palmer and the West Hall Auditorium and listened to Marshall Himes, who was B.J. Palmer's clinic director at one point, speak. And he had a big influence on me wanting to really get into things. But no, I remember, I know so many times people will come into the practice and they'll go, well, what's the difference between a chiropractor and a DO and an MD and all that stuff? And I have something that I've kept in my office for many, many years. And I'll just read it to you. It was in 1968, Dr. Virgil V. Strang was sent to Australia to debate Dr. R.R. Andrews, who was Dean of Faculty of Monash Medical College in Australia, on the subject of chiropractic and whether or not it should be licensed in that country. Dr. Andrews, who at that time of this nationally televised debate felt chiropractic was unsafe and shouldn't be licensed. And so during the debate, the Harvey Lillard story came up, and about having a bone adjusted in his spine, and then his hearing was restored. And so Dr. Andrews said, and I quote, "Now, Dr. Strang, it is easily discernible to anybody knowing anything about anatomy that the hearing sense in the human being is conducted from a mechanism in the ear directly by a nerve from the ear into the temporal lobe of the brain for interpretation. That nerve does not in any way in the world go through the spinal column. No way in the world that a patient could get help with a hearing problem from working with the spine," unquote. Dr. Strang responded by saying, "Now, doctor, I want you to know this. I believed Dr. D.D. Palmer when he got results with that, but I don't want you misleading the listening audience, because I'm going to tell you how potentially an individual could get results with a hearing problem by adjusting the spine. Number one, the eighth cranial nerve, the acoustic nerve that you've alluded to, is a purely sensory nerve. It goes from the hearing organ into the brain for interpretation, but the hearing organ is made up of an eardrum, is made up of three little bones called the ossicles, and is made up of muscles that activate those bones, and is made up of the organ of corti, a very, very intricate and exquisitely arranged system of neurons, which of course are all human body tissues, and all of them require an ability to take on foodstuffs and give off waste products in order for themselves to be healthy. Those are called its trophic functions. That nerve supply starts in the nuclei of the tegmentum, the brainstem, goes down the tracts of the cord at least as far as the stellate ganglion, which is the sympathetic ganglion opposite the transverse processes of the seventh cervical and first thoracic spinal nerves. From there, those impulses recur out into the sympathetic trunks. The sympathetic trunks then recur back up the neck, middle cervical ganglion, superior cervical ganglion, and prolongations of which go back through the cranial floor by the internal carotid canal and by way of the internal carotid and jugular plexuses, anastomose and or arborize with all of the cranial nerves, including the hearing organ. Those structures of hearing gain their trophic nerve supply by what we call a motor supply, not through the eighth cranial nerve as you suggested. That is how a person with hearing problems could receive results from the adjustment of a spinal vertebra, because once that impulse gets into the sympathetic trunk, it recurs up and down, preganglionic and postganglionic fibers, and it's easy for us to understand and research how those trophic impulses come from the spinal cord into all of the cranial nerves, and those results happen in chiropractic offices all the time. End of debate.
So what went on to happen because of this debate?
Well, that Dr. Andrews started helping us get licensure in Australia. So to a large degree, all the chiropractors that are in Australia have a great debt to pay to Dr. Strang for debating this guy at that time.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro Sushi, Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic boot camp, Moveville University, Pure Chiro Notes, Dr. Alok Trivedi, the Black Diamond Club, Element Mattresses, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Vita Chiropractic, the Universal Traction System, MedZone, Vantage Point Marketing, and Imaging Services. Let's hustle.
And you know, I was a little boy and I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. I had no idea that I was walking in the footsteps of the chiropractic profession. I had no idea that there was such a fundamental bell ringing that happened over there at Palmer College when chiropractors became doctors. I had no idea that I was in the shadows of this great profession that I would later become a champion for and to tell this story. And I know that was...
We appreciate all you're doing too, Jim.
Well, you know, I just want to give the glory back to you. And what something you said earlier off camera, earlier was we just have to tell the story.
That's exactly right.
And tell me, why is it so important for us to continuously tell the story?
Because there's always somebody that's never heard it. It's just like leading someone to Christ. You know, if they don't know, somebody's got to tell them. Mm-hmm. And so that's our job. That's our mission, is to get the word out, tell as many people as we can, and help as many people as we can.
Yeah, I know. From our early conversation, I gave you a fury of chiropractic lexion in about 35 seconds, and just gave you an unleashing of what I know, the depth and in the brevity of the depth that I gave to you. It just tells me that more people need to be able to communicate the beautiful message of chiropractic easier.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the doctor that's coming to the symposium. It's all about communication. And
and it's really
cool. What's his name again?
It's Roberto Monaco.
Oh, right. I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah, he actually used to work with Tony Robbins. So I think that will be a really cool addition to the symposium and to the lineup. Let's go through the lineup a little bit and talk a little bit about the people that will be making an impact by speaking, and people that you'll be able to get the continuing education credits with.
Sure.
So I think the first up is Freddie Schofield. We touched on him a little bit, but we talked about one of your contemporaries, Kevin Herron.
Yeah, we were talking off camera. The first time I remember hurting my wrist at rugby practice one time, and I went into the old student union that's no longer there, and a lot of chiropractic was taught in that student union, believe me. And Kevin was sitting at the bar having a beer, and I walked in after rugby practice, and my wrist is killing me, and he adjusted my wrist and showed me how to adjust a wrist. Well, he's still going to school there, and I just thought, this guy's going to go places. That's all he was into was, elbows and shoulders and clavicles and knees and ankles and stuff. And here he is all these years later, and going to see him again. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say about adjusting knees. He's fabulous chiropractor. Really good.
Yeah,
all these guys are.
And did you play rugby with Kevin?
I don't remember Kevin being out there at that time. I think he was getting ready to graduate.
Okay.
And so I don't really remember him being out there. But then I was a freshman, and I was, trying to find my way around the campus, and. So no, I don't really remember him playing, but
he helped you out.
But he helped me out. Yeah, he definitely did. as we all did at one point. I can remember us playing up in Iowa City against University of Iowa, and their big star player or something had hurt his ankle, and I remember adjusting the guy's ankle, and he ended up playing against us. We still beat him. I mean, we never lost to Iowa, but at least the guy got to get out on the field. But yeah, we all did that. We all would adjust the other team and that type of thing.
Well, that's one of the cool things about chiropractic is you need nothing other than your two hands and some palpation and to know where there's limited range of motion, and you can put the adjustment into the transverse process, and you can push that vertebrae to where it's more fluid movement, the movement's back in to that spinal joint again, and the body starts working right.
Yeah. I remember Dr. Strang saying movement is life, lack of movement is death. Get some movement in there. Now, so even the least of chiropractors can do something just by getting some movement into the spine. It's the ones that just rely on physical therapy in their practice and don't adjust. I don't get it. Why? What are you doing? Get with the program. Learn how to adjust. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love the adjuster, and I think that's something very special in the chiropractic paradigm is the adjuster, and I think that's something very special that keeps you guys unique and distinctive within the medical professions. Is that you do find vertebral subluxation, you adjust it, you correct it, and you allow the body to heal itself.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. I saw Jody Serra on here yesterday talking about how he grew up with asthma and nothing was working, and there's those are the stories we need to tell people, and thank God we have somebody like you helping us out and getting the word out, because as we said off camera, a lot of times the layperson's going to listen to you more than they are me, because they might think I have a hidden agenda, whereas you don't. You're just saying, hey, this stuff works and it's fabulous and you ought to do it too.
Yeah, the thing is I think, right now, they've oftentimes said there's no better time to be a chiropractor than right now. And I think that rings true specifically for where we are right now with where the medical paradigm is shifting. People are tired of sick care. People are tired of the pill popping. They're tired of the opiate addictions. And it's not just the chiropractic profession anymore.
I love that. Just a couple of weeks ago, somebody was telling me about talking about the opioid crisis. And I said, yeah, that's interesting. The same people that cause the opioid crisis are not going to fix it. Sure. Sure they are. Here, just take this pill and it'll correct it. It's just amazing.
Well, there needs to be a course correction within the paradigm of the health model. And people are starting to wake up slowly by surely and saying, maybe the chiropractor is the answer to the future of healthcare. Maybe it is the one that doesn't do anything to damage the inside of the body, but actually lets the body heal itself naturally. Yeah. Maybe we're interested in what those crazy chiropractors are doing all these years.
Yeah. It's I can remember when I was in school and how it is now. Things are changing slowly but surely, but things are changing. And I think it's because every class graduates and there's more of us out here telling the story. And that's what's got to happen. We've just got to keep plugging,
And for me, Dr. Barry, what I did is I realized that the chiropractors were winners. I realized that it was a winning team that nobody wanted to support. Nobody wanted to wear their jersey. And I said, I know that the chiropractic profession is the answer for the future. And I know that there was an Edison quote that said, the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the cause and prevention of disease and in the human frame. And what I know it to be is that the chiropractor isn't the doctor of the future. They're the chiropractor is the doctor of now.
Right, exactly. And I think maybe, I'm kind of like Jody's answer yesterday. Maybe not in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 15 years, whatever, the sooner the better for the public, but we just have to keep educating them. We keep doing spinal care classes, keep doing, talking to your church members, talking to your friends, talking to the guys you play golf with, explain it to them, keep it simple, because they're not doctors, but communication's the key, and we just got to keep going. We can't, and we will. I mean, the people in this profession are all fantastic. I didn't have a dad or uncle or anybody that was a chiropractor, but I always tell people, I didn't choose chiropractic. Chiropractic chose me, and thank God for that, because I can't imagine sitting here right now reading briefs or something, getting ready to go to court tomorrow. What a boring life that would have been.
Yeah, the world is a better place for you becoming a doctor, chiropractor, Dr. Barry. I just wanted to filter in there. I tell people this all the time, and hopefully you guys are listening to this and pick up on this one communication tip: is the guy that makes the car isn't the same one that sells the car. So that's why really what I want to do, Dr. Barry, is create a sales force for chiropractic. Because
exactly.
the doctor that adjusts the spine isn't the same one that should go sell the adjustment on wherever that you find the people. So there should be a group of people like myself that are passionately in love with the profession of chiropractic, that sell the profession and allow the doctors to be affluent with their service that they provide at their offices and at their clinics.
Yeah, I just saw Tim McFadden up here. The future is now. He's right. The future is right now. No time like the present to get and tell the story.
Well, the thing is listening is very important. They say you get 2 ears and 1 mouth. But with the chiropractor, we change that paradigm just a little bit, because you get 2 ears and 1 mouth and 2 hands now.
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
You get to go into a different level of work. And half of that is telling the story, but a lot of that is listening to someone else's story and being able to interview that prospective person, find out what's going on, if they're doing anything to help it, and if they've ever considered chiropractic to help it. And at that point,
I always say you can't show someone how much you know until you show them how much you care.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, and that's just it, Dr. Barry, is people don't realize how passionate the profession of chiropractic is, because the chiropractor is trying to keep their head above water, because it's such a it's a grind out there. And growing a practice right now in 2018 is a lot different than growing a practice when you were jumping out of school.
Yeah. I thank God for the people that I had around me. I mean, and talking about rugby, when I graduated from Palmer, I came out here and worked for a couple doctors doing their exams and x-rays and stuff. And then finally I heard through a standard process salesman one time, this practice for sale out in up by this lake here in Oklahoma, in Wagner, Oklahoma. And I went up there and I knew nothing about how to run a business. You mean, talk about knowing nothing about chiropractic. Now I knew something about chiropractic, but I didn't know how to run a business. And Dr. Peter Flett, who used to be the captain and coach of the Palmer rugby team back in the 60s, when they won a couple national championships back then, lived in Ponca City, and he was playing rugby for Ponca City and was coaching them, and I was playing for Tulsa Rugby Club, and we met on the field before the game. And he goes, "Hey, Betty Robinson," he's from New Zealand. He goes, "I heard you played for Pomni." He goes, "I did too." He goes, "We'll go have a couple pints afterwards." He goes, "It's going to be a little tough on you today, mate." Okay, but he was a great chiropractor and passed away several years ago. But I remember he paid my way to go to Parker the first time I went to Parker, and he kind of got me going and mentored me a little there, and thank God he did. Thank God there was somebody willing to take me in and kind of show me how to do things. And then of course I would tell any young student, get with Freddie Schofield, go out and listen to Freddie, find some people around that are doing what you want to do, that are doing it a lot better than you are, and listen to them, and
that's when you get to learn how to chisel your future. And
yeah.
I'll tell you, Dr. Barry, I can't even give you a quantifiable number how many young DCs reach out to me and ask me for advice. And I'm not a DC, but I've learned how to talk the tick. I've learned how to at least leverage into the profession with the intelligence that I have on how to grow practice from the ways that I know work.
Yeah. Yeah. You just made me think of something else. And that's if I was a student at Palmer, and if I was going to chiropractic college, that's where I'd go. But I can remember they made me at the time I was alumni president for the state of Oklahoma, and I had to go up to Palmer several times a year for meetings, and I'd always go to the Pie House. So I got to give a shout out to the Pie House, because those people have really made a difference in my life. They may not know it, but they have. Scott Castile, his brother, Mark, and all the guys, all the guys that I've met there while I was going up there to those meetings. Some of them rugby players, some of them not. But a big shout out to Victor Dolan and James Big Daddy Redding, who practices here in Tulsa, also played rugby for Palmer. They got me into the Pi group by making me an honorary brother, which I'm very proud of. And those guys they're awesome. I wish when I was in school, I would have had the time and to do that. But I was working literally 3 jobs and playing rugby and going to school. I worked at the student union on Wednesdays. The rest of the week, I worked at a restaurant, the Dock Restaurant, some people remember. And then I worked at Roadway on weekends. And the toughest days were Mondays at school for me, because I'd work 11 at night till 7 in the morning at Roadway, unload tractor trailers, have to be at class at 7:45. And then go to class until 3:30 or something, and then have an hour or so, and then it was time to go to rugby practice. So you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
But we got through it, and thank God now we have more scholarships. Back then we didn't have all that. We had, I think, 15 scholarships, and just a few were full, and the rest were divided up. And I know I never saw any of that money, but that's only because I wasn't that great of a player. But I just loved everything about the experience of going to Palmer and being around the rugby team and being a part of that today, and the Pie House, all of them. They're just fantastic people. And if you can't have fun there, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
So,
just to filter in a little bit of my story is I've had a chance to speak at the Dee Pie House this past November. This past year, I spoke at the Pie House during the homecoming, and then the previous year, I spoke at the Delt House. And I've actually had a chance to talk marketing to students through the IFCO on Palmer campus, and that's been all over the past 3 years.
that's
So.
great.
There's been a lot of opportunity for me to make an impact with the future of chiropractic in my backyard of Davenport, Iowa, and to be a part of the rugby family, be a part of Palmer College of Chiropractic family, and be a part of the Pie Brothers, and and to see the inside of what this institution and this chiropractic college means to all chiropractors, because without Palmer, I'll say it 1,000 times, without Palmer, there's not another chiropractor out there.
That's absolutely right. You talk to these guys that go to other schools. A lot of them started at Palmer, flunked out because they couldn't handle it, end up at another chiropractic college and graduate from there. But you ask them, where did Dr. Cleveland go to school? Palmer. Where did Dr. So and so go to school? Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys that started all these other chiropractic colleges, Life Chiropractic College. Where did Sid Williams go to school? Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
So it all comes back to the fountainhead. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Well, I think we're coming up on the edge of our time together, but let's talk a little bit more about the leadership that you've seen change and how you've seen the program actually become a formidable system in operation.
well, I think Matt Walker, I think, is doing just an absolutely fabulous job. But all the guys that are on the board of directors and are behind the scenes doing all this work need to really be commended because, you know, they could be doing something else, but they aren't. They're giving back, and it's it's great. I mean, it's great what they're doing, and we're so much more organized now. I mean, just so much more organized, and you can see the wheels turning, getting stronger and stronger. This locomotive's picking up steam,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great. It's going to be nice when we're so self-sufficient that we don't have to rely on anybody else. You know that we're there on our own, and we're getting there. I hope before I die that we have our own field and our own clubhouse. Oh my God, that what a blessing that would be to be able to go back to the fountainhead, walk in, have a place where we could all get together as ex-rugby players and see all our hardware that we've earned over the years and sit and tell stories about how, as we get older, how fast we were.
Well, well,
The older you get, the faster you were, So.
well, I'll close out with you, but appreciate you sharing your stories today. One of the tenets of what I like to tell people is you're only one story away, so keep hustling. And I will be there with you and be able to shake your hand February or not February, April 13th and 14th back at the Fountainhead. And we'll be able to raise a pint together and talk about this amazing interview that we had a chance to do here today, and just be able to rekindle our story together and be able to inspire the future generation of chiropractors that are going through the same hallways that Dee Dee and BJ and Harvey went through. And with
Jim,
that,
Jim, it's been a pleasure and an honor, and keep up the good work. And I will see you at the symposium.
and then we'll talk about all the amazing speakers that we didn't cover today during our interview.
Yeah, well, we'll get to them too.
Yeah,
I
so
encourage everybody to take, call a former teammate. Try to get them there. People forget. They think, why should I go? What difference does it make? Hey, if you go to the symposium, you're supporting the team.
mhm.
You can at least do that. So, That's how I look at it. So
time, talent, and treasure. Give one of
That's
them, or give them
Yeah.
all.
yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. So I wish you the best of luck and keep plugging.
Yeah,
Keep charging.
that's a Freddie statement. Keep charging, and mine is keep hustling. So we'll
Yeah.
just we'll do the charge, we'll do the hustle, and we'll see you back at the Fountainhead. Okay. Till
See you,
next
my
time.
friend.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.